Hello, I'm BrigantiaBlackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome back to our limited series of Yuletide Tarot. I have the Evergreen Yule Tarot spread for us today. It has 7 cards. I have got you a quick pick of the cards that I pulled for the purposes of this video. And while last week I opened up a vein for you guys a little bit, and I did a reading that was very specifically for myself. This particular reading, I was thinking about, the whole pagan community wherever we are, whatever people we consist of, about anything that we really need to be bearing in mind, essentially as a group in this coming year. So let's find out what we came up with. So, the first card had the title of Pine Wreath, and the question of it was, what needs to be brought to completion or purged before the end of the year? And for this, our tribe pulled the Chariot, which of course is the Chariot in the regular tarot as well as this deck. It's number 7 in the major arcana, and it represents the will. And the key words to pay attention to are responsibility, self-assertion, and speed. So it's interesting that this is coming up in the context of what we need to complete or purge. Maybe we have been trying to evade responsibility, maybe on a personal level. Maybe there are aspects within the broader pagan community in which we're not really assuming proper responsibility for, this revival of that we're all a part of, and the role that we play in it. That's one way we could be taking. That. The self-assertion. Perhaps some of us, on the other hand, instead of shirking our duties as pagans. Maybe we've been pushing ourselves a bit too far forward. Perhaps we've been not the best ambassador for the whole pagan umbrella. And it isn't fair. None of us are perfect, and no one who speaks publicly or speaks privately about paganism, for that matter, is necessarily going to be the best representation of us all of the time. Um, and it is unfair that if people get a bad impression of one pagan, that there is a tendency for us to all get labeled with that bad impression. But it isn't really about fairness, is it? It's about this is the reality that we're dealing with, and we can choose to complain about how human beings behave, or we can just recognize that this is just how it is, and so we have to make our plans accordingly. And also, the fact that the chariot is also associated with speed, it does. I mean, are you starting to feel like just kind of time start to pick up? We are barreling towards the solstice. We are getting down to that very bottom of the calendar year. We're getting to this point where it's just full speed ahead before that hard break at the end, where after the Yuletide festivities pass over, then we're suddenly in deep winter. It's serious. It's hibernation time. All of this is telling me urgency. Be about your business, and also be aware of how you're presenting yourself. Now, the second card in the spread was titled Yule Log. And the question associated with it was what to hope for in the new year, or a main influence in the year ahead for good or bad. So, what have we got coming? We have the 5 of Candles. So, for the suit of candles, think the suit of wands as well as the element of fire. It's number 5 in that progression. So, severity, crisis, challenge, transformation. Oh boy, it already sounds, we're already getting into some dubious territory here. And the key words for the card are competition, unpredictability, discord, and arguments. There's a reason to believe, on various fronts, that the coming new calendar year could be a bit testy. It may be testy politically, for those who did not get the outcome that they wanted in the election. It could be testy because I think a lot of social challenges are really coming to a head, and the questions of how we live our lives and what roles we take on and why we take on them. I think a lot of things are really coming to a head, and there could be a great deal of argumentation about that, as well as just various institutions. What purpose do they serve in our society? Are they actually going about their proper business, or have they been corrupted, and to what degree? There's a lot of things that could be causing a lot of uproar and upset. And this could also manifest in our personal lives. Friendships that we may have had for years, we might suddenly be looking at each other of what are you doing here exactly? There might be differences between people that get magnified. And especially since we're beginning the new year with 3 planets in retrograde. Let's see, I think it'll be Mars. If I remember right, we'll have Mars, Jupiter, and Uranus. if I'm remembering correctly. If I'm not, throw tomatoes at me, I deserve it. But all of those planets about, with Mars, it's, what do you want? With Jupiter, it's reconnecting with your true path, and with Taurus, is about reconsidering how you rebel. This is an atmosphere in which we're really examining our most basic premises and saying, am I actually on the right path? Am I with the right people on this path? And what should I really be doing? So I think we can expect to have our own ideas challenged in a pretty serious way. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing. This could be a sign of kind of a general awakening to where, if, any of us who have gone off course, we can start correcting course and bring ourselves into better alignment with our life purposes and our own ambitions. Um, and something about this, it made me think of also of spiritual awakenings. And I mean that because so many things I perceive people as having believed rather blindly over the years. I see a lot of blind believers in politics. I see a lot of blind believers in religion. I see a lot of blind believers in their own social opinions about the social order. And I almost wonder if maybe there's been enough holes poked into people's foundations that things are now getting starting to crack open. I experienced something very similar when I was beginning to wake up from my Jehovah's Witness indoctrination. The process actually began first when I got divorced, and it was what they called an unscriptural divorce because couldn't be proved that there had been unfaithfulness on either side, and so they expect you to essentially live like a nun for the rest of your life. Real charming stuff. So realizing just to the extent to which your own personal life does not matter to an organization that you had been committed to, that can be the beginning of a pretty severe mental earthquake. Then the writings of Ayn Rand and her philosophy of objectivism, that had a really powerful impact upon me. And in addition to just having this unrelenting, is it true or is it false? Is it solid or is it squishy? What is actually the thing? And are you willing to acknowledge the true nature of the thing when the evidence is before your eyes? That played an incredibly huge role. And this doesn't mean that, I consider myself an objectivist or that I think she got everything right all of the time. But her manner of thinking and the way she presented her ideas, it really challenged me to look at my own and to it gave me the idea that even if it all came crumbling down, that eventually in the long run, I would be okay because I was trying to figure out truth. I was trying to find solid ground. I was trying to bring myself into better alignment with reality. So if any of us really find ourselves on kind of having that level of spiritual crisis as individuals or throughout broader society, this can ultimately be a good thing. Not that the process won't be rough, but it can ultimately be a good thing if we allow ourselves to be refined. So let's move on. The third card was Miss. That wasn't mistletoe. It was Page of Candles. Oh, I see. It was titled mistletoe in the spread. That's where the mistletoe came from. And this is what to fertilize, whether it's projects, ventures, studies, etc., in the new year. And the pagan community pulled the Page of Candles. Candles again, wands and fire. The pages: innocence, openness, optimism, enthusiasm. And the keywords for the particular card are enthusiastic, joyous, and communicative. So this tells me that in the coming new year, we need to be fostering connections, particularly if we do kind of go through, I suppose, a crisis of faith in one form or another. Reaching out to people who are trustworthy, reaching out to people who are on a similar journey and pathward as we are, of being open to human connection again, of being willing to perhaps begin again with other people. There's a lot of different ways, but this to me is saying community building. It's about embracing other people. And honestly, I think it's about reclaiming our own humanity and giving up perhaps an atomized existence, and including also making sure that our outreach goes beyond just the digital space. So that's the impression I get from that card. Then the next card up was the Yule tree. So, what talent or gift to draw on to make your dreams come true? For this, the community pulled the Queen of Gifts. Gifts, think pentacles or coins, and the element of earth. Queens are expressive, they are experiences, they are thoughtfulness, and they are sustaining. And the keywords for this card are pragmatic, protecting, and parental. So, drawing upon our capacity to mature, drawing upon our own personal experiences, and if we are ever approached essentially and put into the role of mentor, of allowing ourselves to actually give someone the benefit of our experience instead of shying away, saying, "Oh no, it's whatever you think." Well, I mean, sometimes people when they come to you advice, they already know what they think. They're trying to test an opinion against you. And it isn't to say that they're going to substitute their judgment and their decision making power to the person they're consulting, but they are looking for perhaps aspects of the situation that they haven't thought about, or perhaps leaning upon someone else's life experience who's been through similar situations or has seen some stuff that they haven't, and allowing ourselves to be think, okay, what would be a practical assistance? What's actually going to preserve this person's interest? And am I willing to actually take on that mantle to be mature and to dispense with that kind of advice when someone actually does come to us. And I think this also ties in with an ongoing theme that's been building up on this channel, and I really feel reflected in the spread about the need for the pagan community as a whole to mature, to embrace to embrace a form of spirituality that is going beyond just what we find ourselves personally satisfied about understanding that this is about making connections, and not just with the gods, not just with our ancestors, not just with the natural forces and energies of the earth, but also with other people, of allowing other people, of not pretending like it's all about us, about growing up out of that. It's not narcissism, but it certainly is self-centered, coming out of what has, in many respects, been more of a self-centered spirituality, and realizing that we're part of something larger. That doesn't mean that we have to give up our individuality or our personal practices. Quite the opposite. It just means that we need to be looking for opportunities to find common ground with others. Then, next up, we have candles, which is how to shine your light in the new year. For this, we pulled the Eight of Canes. Canes that relates to the suit of swords and to the element of air. The number eight is glory, abundance, harvest, manifestation. And the key words for this card are bondage, confusion, narrowness, and restriction. You're going to say, okay, okay. Are you sure you were concentrating, Brigantia? How could this be about shining our light in the new year? And the way I interpret this is I'm looking at this young girl who's tied up into those bandages. And there's something about the way it's implied the wind is blowing. Those bandages look to me to be a little bit loose. And while she is surrounded by those candy canes that are certainly, kind of fencing her in a little bit, I see gaps. I see opportunities to be able to walk through. So I'm seeing this more so as a release. This could be a release from things that are getting us down, give a release from old burdens that have kept us more focused upon the past rather than looking to the present and trying to build the future. This can be perhaps a release from our narrow-mindedness of thinking, or of our ideas of saying, "Oh, I can't be openly pagan. I can't practice. I can't. If someone asks me my religion, I can't give them a straight answer." This, to me, suggests that there's at least an opportunity for us to move beyond that, these limitations, particularly the limitations we have imposed upon ourselves. Um, there's a lot. This is actually, I think, a card that would be particularly worth meditating upon, because we might ask ourselves, what has been darkening our light, or what has prevented our light from shining, or in what ways have we hidden our light away to where no one else can see it but ourselves? And thinking about, how can we change that next year? How can things be different? How can I be part of building that different set of circumstances? So I see a lot of opportunity in this card. I see the being bound as something that we're getting away from. We're moving out of this phase. Then we have Holly, where you need protection and how to protect yourself. For this, we pulled the Sun. And it's number 19 in the major arcana, which represents vitality. And its keywords are life force, hope, and enlightenment. So it has been said that sunlight is the best disinfectant, and I think that is absolutely true. But also think about what the sun is. It is the embodiment of active, projective, fiery energy. It is something that is it's just out there. It's burning away impurities. It's shining along. It's keeping going, and having that kind of energy feed into us. Not only can that be extremely cleansing, but also I think it's a way of recharging. So the drawing upon this about where we need protection or how we need to protect ourselves, I really see this as being a lot more proactive. Not needlessly aggressive or going around looking for a fight or anything foolish like that, but simply being, this is who I am, and I will be this person who I am out loud. I'm not ashamed of my spirituality. I'm not ashamed of my community, although, we all we we do have assholes amongst us, don't we? However, despite that, we're not ashamed of the beliefs and the practices that we have adopted, and showcasing, the beauty of it, living it, striving to fulfill our highest ideals that we've learned about within our pagan faiths. That is a way of embracing this kind of sunlight. And also, if we need a little bit more instruction, I think working with solar deities would probably be pretty wise. Of, look, I don't know how to shine. I don't know how to embody this. I don't know how to radiate this. Well, who's going to have better wisdom for us right now than solar deities? So even if you haven't worked with them before, don't be bashful. This seems like the time. Then we have Ivy, how to establish a foundation of peace in the new year. We have the Nine of Canes for that. Canes again, suit of swords, air element. The number 9 is foundation, leadership, idealism, and completeness. So this is the whole package of the thing. And the key words for the card are anxiety, suffering, mental anguish, and disturbances. So, how does this relate to establishing a foundation of peace in the new year? Well, probably by accepting the reality that there are things beyond our control and not seeking to control the things that really are beyond us, and instead focusing upon what is within our sphere of influence, what is within our power to do, the choices that are available for us to make, instead of worrying, 10 or 20 steps down the line about, how can we have this work out to where we complete our goals, or to how we could have a more pagan friendly world, or how we can have better relationships within the pagan community ourselves. There's a lot of different people's wills, as well as the wills of deities and ancestors and goodness knows who else, that are playing into that whirlpool. We can't control it all ourselves, and we're not going to have the answers for how things can ultimately work out also all by ourselves. But if we focus upon just doing our part of keeping an eye on our goal and thinking, okay, just what am I contributing to that goal? And just do what you can. And once you do what you can, then you can do no more. You have done what you ought to have done. You have done your part. You have fulfilled your role. And that is good enough. And allow things to unfold. Breathe a little bit more, meditate a little bit more, focus upon what's to be done rather than all the dreadful things that might happen. That can go a long way to us having more peace within ourselves, also keeping more focused on what we ought to be doing, and it's going to lessen the anxiety, the suffering, the mental anguish, and all kinds of disturbances, psychological and otherwise. Now, with mental health being such an issue right now, and it seems to be an issue throughout the Western world, and there are some indications that, some parts of the East are also really struggling with this right now. In making healthier choices, that can be one of the stepping stones towards improving our mental health. It is something to take seriously, and it is something that is actually worth investing in. And it doesn't mean that we have to be coddled. We don't have to withdraw from life. We don't need to go pray at at a pagan holy site and isolate ourselves. That's not what this is about. But we can choose to perhaps limit our exposure to environments and to people who have a very detrimental impact upon us, and we can also take hold of our thought process. If our brains are going 100 miles an hour, and it's trying to control things that that isn't for us to do, we can take a moment, take hold of ourselves, and say, I'm not going that direction. I'm not going to do that to myself. And of course, that takes practice. You you probably not be successful the first several times you try it, but if you persist, you will make improvement, and that is what is going to improve your own mental health. So that's something to bear in mind as well. So now that we've looked at all the cards individually, let's look at the takeaways. The first thing is that we need to be taking ownership of ourselves, our deeds, and our path. To be on the guard for controversy, weigh out what's worth getting involved in and what perhaps you can just allow to unfold without your influence. You can allow yourself permission to be happy. You can choose to focus upon the good. It doesn't mean you ignore the bad or you deny the existence of the bad, but it does mean that you put the good on a higher place of the totem pole than you do the bad. And that's a huge step for a lot of people right now. Another lesson that I take from this is that practicality, maturity are the qualities most needed to attain success. Release yourself from the confines of outmoded ideologies. And again, with that sunlight, best disinfectant and taking action is the cure for many an ill. And again, accept that there are things beyond your control. Put them down, leave it in the hands of the gods where it belongs. So as I look at this and I think about this in the context specifically of the pagan world, I think these are pretty simple, straightforward things. I think these are things that all of us can do. Uh, can really commit to independently, work on independently, but then all together that does lead up to us going arriving at a better situation. And maybe a year from now, while I'm sure we'll still have our controversies and our difficulties, I think also we have the potential to be in an improved state, to be on more solid footing, and again to be building community in a more real way, specifically building it off the digital space. So lots to meditate on here. I would love to hear your thoughts about this particular spread. Do you have more nuance? Did you take some cards in a different direction? Let me know in the comments. I think a lot of these cards, I think, could warrant a great deal of discussion. So if you feel like typing out your thoughts, I would be delighted to read them and engage with you on that. Uh, but that is what I have for you. And next week, we are going to be looking at the winter solstice reflection tarot spread, and that's going to be, I think, again, taking us a little bit more inwards. Um, and I'll have to think about, how I want to lay out that spread exactly. But I hope you'll be coming back for that. And again, look for this tarot spread as well as the tarot spread that was shared on today's daily forecast under the community tabs on my YouTube channel. And just let me know what you think, especially if you use these. I think that'd be an interesting conversation starter. So that's what I have for you today, and I will see you guys next time. Bye for now.